welcome to this edition of Sound Off Extra here on the official YouTube channel for the Solomonster Sounds Off podcast, which you can listen to each and every Sunday on the Solomonster.com, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. This is your Extreme Rules 2016 wrap-up. The pay-per-view from Newark, New Jersey just went off the air a little while ago. Overall, good show. Very similar, I thought, to Payback last month. I thought Payback was a really good show. This show had two excellent matches. The Intercontinental Championship Fatal 4-Way, the Extreme Rules main event for the WWE Championship between Roman Reigns and AJ Styles. The rest of the show, kind of ho-hum. It was one good match. I thought the U.S. title match with Rusev and Kalisto was good. Everything else on the show was okay. I don't think there was anything, bad. But this was a two-match show. It was all about the IC and the WWE Championship, and the matches were good enough that I'm looking at the poll right now up on Twitter. So far, over 800 votes already. 67% thumbs up, 33% thumbs down. So it seems like the majority of you agree with me. And it was punctuated by a major return at the end of the show, which we'll get to a little bit later. I'm also going to give some thoughts. Cody Rhodes put up a statement on his Twitter page. I was talking about this on the podcast earlier today. We were waiting for Cody's explanation about why he requested his release from WWE. He has come out with a statement. It is a very respectful but brutally honest statement, and so I'll get to that at the end of the show here. But let's just go through the pay-per-view. Dolph Ziggler, Baron Corbin had themselves a no DQ match on the kickoff show. Pretty basic stuff. Baron Corbin got the win in the end, as he should. It's all about building Baron Corbin. There's really nothing left to build with Dolph Ziggler at this point, who is looking more and more like Shawn Michaels by the week in terms of his gear, not just his moves. The pay-per-view itself opened with Doc Gallows, Luke Gallows, call him what you will, Carl Anderson against the Usos in a Texas Tornado match. This is pretty good. Again, kind of basic in some ways, like a TV match that you would see. But the important thing is that the outcome was the correct one. Gallows and Anderson get the win. In the end, they had their Magic Killer finish for the pin. Again, they're the new guys. I am not fond of the fact that they've taken a few pinfall losses as it is. This was an essential win for them. They got the win. They were playing up the story that the Usos might be hurt. Perhaps they wouldn't come out in the main event to help out Roman Reigns, but it was almost all but assured, if you listen to the announcers, that Gallows and Anderson would be out for the main event. I have to say, about the announcers, I was getting a lot of tweets as the show went on about how awful and horrendous the commentary was, and I did pick up on that a little bit, but I was watching with a group of people. The volume was kind of turned down a little bit, so I was spared some of the more awful commentary. There's nothing on commentary tonight that really stands out to me as being overly offensive, but I admit that may just be because I was only half paying attention to it. So that didn't really bother me. Kalisto and Rusev for the United States Championship. They had themselves a good little match here. And again, the right outcome. I was hoping they'd put the U.S. title back on Rusev. That is what they did. Brutal looking accolade at the end of the match. I mean, he practically broke this poor guy in half. So Rusev gets the championship win. I'm a little weary, only because one of you tweeted me earlier when the podcast, episode 441, went up, and you said, well, they must be getting ready to put the U.S. title on Rusev so he could drop it to John Cena next week on Raw. And I said, uh-oh, you're probably right. It's Memorial Day, too. I mean, think about it. John Cena comes back, wins the United States Championship on Memorial Day. Can easily see that happening. I'd like for Rusev to get a little run with it, though. I mean, I was a fan of the Open Challenge with Cena. I wouldn't be offended if they started doing it again. In a way, it would kind of be going to an old idea. It's almost like been there, done that. So I wouldn't be disturbed if they put the belt back on John Cena. I thought he did well with it, but I'd like to see Rusev get a little more of a run with it. We had New Day and the Vaudevillains for the tag team titles. Pretty short. Just, it was there. Big E, again, with that dive through the ropes, landed right on his shoulder. I think if anybody did that move the way that he did it, I mean, it looks great. It looks completely reckless. This guy's just wiping out his opponent. it's a high impact move. If anybody did that, I would cringe and wince and be worried that, oh my God, they broke their shoulder. This is a 300-pound, thickly built guy. And all of that weight, every single time he does that, is crashing down on the floor. And I'm not trying to jinx the guy, but it's inevitable that at some point, he's going to break his shoulder or dislocate his shoulder or something that's going to put him on the shelf. And, he can do whatever he wants, but for his sake, I wish he would stop doing that. It's not even enjoyable at this point. It's scary. I look away. And he came up after he did it this time here in the match. I'm hoping he was just selling. I haven't, read anything that he went to the back and was sent to the hospital or anything or for an x-ray. So hopefully he was just selling it. But he was, his arm was practically, immobile after the match. He wasn't moving it. He was wincing like he was in pain. Wouldn't shock me at all if he actually did blow out the shoulder. He's got to stop doing that. Xavier Woods got the pin, hit the Shining Wizard. Not too often we see Xavier win the match for his team. But, whatever. This was fine. This was fine for what it was. And the right team won. And the Vaudevillains now, I don't know, not looking too good for them. We had the, I'm thinking match of the night. It could go either way with this or the main event. To me, this was the match of the night. Some people might disagree and say the main event was. My vote would go here. This was an outstanding match. And I said, when I did the predictions on the podcast earlier today, I said this right here is going to be the sleeper match. You watch. And it was. The Miz, Cesaro, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens for the Intercontinental Championship Fatal 4-Way match. Everybody in this match came out looking just fantastic. They all had their moments. They all hit their moves. Lots of near falls. Just so much action, I can't even go into all of it here. Obviously, we saw Cesaro swing on Miz at one point. Actually, when the match started, the very first move of the match, Sami Zayn hit Kevin Owens in the corner with the haluva kick and took him out 2 seconds into the match. So right from the opening bell, it was all action. And from there, it just got better and better. In the end, The Miz stole a pin. Basically, everybody in this match killed each other. And The Miz crawled on top of Cesaro and got the pin. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Zayn was throwing Owens around outside. Zayn had the match won when Owens had pulled him out of the ring. So they were doing their thing outside. Cesaro, who was laid out in the ring, got covered by Miz and pinned. So sucks that Cesaro took the fall here. But, you take your pick. I mean, you got a lot of guys in this match. You want to see them all do well. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were great. They're usually great, whatever you put them in, whatever situation you put them in. And Miz, too. Miz deserves a lot of credit, and I figured Miz was coming out of this with the championship, and that's exactly what happened. So, cannot say enough good things about this match. This was just fantastic stuff. Then we had something that was decidedly not fantastic, unfortunately. We had Dean Ambrose and Chris Jericho in an Asylum cage match. First time in WWE history. It was basically just a steel cage match with some random objects and weapons dangling from the top. Pretty much all of them, I think, except the potted plant, unless I missed something here, was used. They used a straitjacket. Jericho put Dean Ambrose in a straitjacket at one point. The fire extinguisher, the kendo stick, barbed wire baseball bat, nunchucks were used at one point, brandished by Dean Ambrose, who actually seemed to know what he was doing with them. This match went way too long. If the Intercontinental title match didn't go long enough, like it kept you begging for more, this had me just begging for it to end. It was just, they gave this thing over 25 minutes. 25 minutes they gave this match, which was, at least 10 more than it needed. And it didn't benefit from coming after that Fatal 4-Way match. In a way, this turned out to be the come-down match. And, if you look at the placement of all the matches on this show, I don't know. I guess it is what it is. I mean, you had a lot of good matches up and down the card. At some point, you're going to have to put one good match after another. Unfortunately for these two, they came after the match of the night, in my opinion. And I think the crowd was a little bit burned out. Now they got back up for the main event, but that's the main event. And they had a couple of matches to cool down or get their energy back. they just weren't really reacting to much. The only thing they really reacted to, I felt, was the thumbtack stuff at the end, and that was you're always going to react to thumbtacks. I mean, it's a cheap thrill. You know, we don't get to see that very often in WWE. That's what this match built to. Dean Ambrose had introduced, there was a bucket hanging from the top of the cage. He brought down the bucket. Inside the bucket was a black pouch. Inside the black pouch was just thousands of thumbtacks, and he laid them out. And they did a lot of spots teasing he was going to drop Jericho or throw Jericho on them, and Jericho would stop himself. And in the end, Jericho went for a code breaker. Ambrose caught him in midair and ended up basically slamming him down back first on the thumbtacks. Jericho, thumbtacks just sticking out of his arms, sticking out of his back. His arms were all bloody and cut up. Ambrose hit Dirty Deeds, might have gotten a couple of thumbtacks in Jericho's forehead, got the pin. The right outcome, at least. That's the one good thing I'll say about this match. Dean Ambrose, he needed this win more than Jericho did. It's one thing, I know Ambrose won the first match at Payback. We see so much of this back and forth, you win one, I win one bullshit in WWE. I was hoping they'd give Ambrose 2 straight, consecutive wins on pay-per-view, and they did. So that was the good thing. The bad thing was the rest of it. It was just boring. It's the best I could, that's the nicest way I can put it. I could probably, I saw a lot of sentiment on Twitter that was a hell of a lot more biting than what I just said. I'm not going to go and say, oh, this was just an atrocity or anything like that. It just dragged. The crowd didn't care. And there was just, I don't know, there was just no energy behind. I think it was so slow. That was the whole thing. The match itself was just, it felt slow. And just not a good match. We had Charlotte and Natalya for the Women's Championship in a submission match. And Ric Flair banned from ringside as per the rules. They had an okay match. It ended up being in the traditional death slot, although I would say Jericho and Ambrose probably got the real death spot on the show. But typically, and they used to do this all the time where they would put the women's match right before the main event as kind of a cool down. I don't think they really do it as much anymore. Unfortunately for these two, they ended up in that spot. So the crowd wasn't really overly receptive. They traded submissions back and forth. This all built to Dana Brooke coming out. The deserted Dana Brooke, her partner, of course, went down with an injury. The one who I felt bad for when this was over was Emma. Because now it's like, oh man, poor Emma. She lost her spot. Dana Brooke seems to be the beneficiary. They seemingly paired Dana Brooke up with Ric Flair and Charlotte. Unless it was a one-night-only thing, I guess we'll find out on Raw, but it certainly seemed like they were all together. So this may be a new alliance here on TV. But Dana Brooke came out, Ric Flair's music hit. They wanted you to believe it was Rick. Her back was turned. She was wearing a Ric Flair, I think, wig and robe. And then she took it off to reveal who she was, and she got involved. This was the first that I can remember, at least in a long time. They do distraction roll-ups all the time on this frickin' show. Well, here we got a distraction submission. Natty was distracted, and Charlotte ended up getting her in the figure 8. She tapped out. Charlotte retains the championship, and hopefully now she moves on to her next opponent. Not sure who that would be, although my money would probably be on Paige. I think Charlotte and Paige, well, I guess they already did that, but you can't go wrong with Becky, but Becky hasn't really been having a whole lot of luck lately. So I guess we'll see what direction. Maybe they go in a 3-way direction, or even 4, maybe if they want to include Dana Brooke in there. But the whole point, I think, is just to kill time until you get to Sasha at SummerSlam. So it almost doesn't even matter what you do between now and then, because I don't see that belt coming off Charlotte. And then we had the main event. Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, an Extreme Rules match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. This was an excellent main event. Had it not been for that Fatal 4-Way for the IC title, easily match of the night. And you may think this is match of the night. Look, you can't go wrong either way. Either one of those matches were outstanding. I just give the slight nod to the IC match, but this was great stuff. These two work very well together. I was a big fan of their main event at Payback. I thought they had an excellent match then. They had an excellent match here. They had the benefit of the Extreme Rules stip, so they brawled all over the arena. I was hoping maybe they would take it to the back, pop up in the bathroom somewhere. We haven't seen that in a while, but they didn't do that. And so they ended up brawling back to ringside. AJ Styles, I have to talk about this. Roman Reigns held his own, but AJ Styles, this guy killed himself killed himself to put in that great performance and make Roman Reigns look like an unstoppable force. And he deserves a lot of credit for that. This guy took a wicked back body drop off of one announce table through the other. It landed on his ass. And that was just one of at least 3 or 4 ridiculously crazy bumps this guy took in this match. He's going to wake up tomorrow morning feeling sore. I guarantee it. And he's going to be, and it's not just the ankle. I know he's had some ankle problems recently, missed some house shows. His back, his ankle, his neck, his entire body. He's going to be paying the price for this one. This was maybe his best performance yet, and that's saying a lot because Styles has had a lot of great performances so far. He's only been in the company for 4 months now, 5 months. Really hasn't been that long. But I think this might have been the best of all the matches I've seen him in. And like I said, Roman, he was right there with him. People hated Roman. They chanted Roman sucks. You still suck. After he would hit a big spot, they didn't care. Gallows and Anderson did come out. The Usos came out, so they had their turns. Gallows and Anderson took out Roman at one point. The Usos took out AJ, much to the chagrin of the fans. AJ Styles at one point went absolutely batshit insane with a steel chair. He was hitting the Usos with chairs. He hit Roman Reigns with about 10 chair shots in a row. In fact, he hit 2 Styles clashes, including one on a steel chair, both of which Roman kicked out from. So 2 Styles clashes, 10 chair shots, or give or take, thereabout. Was it enough to put down the big dog? AJ went for the springboard forearm, the phenomenal forearm, and Roman caught him in midair with a spear for the pin. I could kind of feel the air go out of the building a little bit. To me, this was not in any way, shape, or form a surprise. I had predicted Roman would win. I think most people probably did. I don't know that anybody seriously thought AJ was walking away with the championship. His role here, and I said it earlier on the podcast I did, I'll say it here again. His role and the role of Anderson and Gallows is very clear. They were in a good spot for the last several weeks, right? Top program, headlining shows. But their goal here was to help put over Roman Reigns. This was Roman's first program since winning the championship from Triple H at WrestleMania. They had to help solidify Roman as the respectable, dominant champion. And that's what they did. Now, people still may hate Roman's guts, but they did their job, and they did their job well. But that was all that they were there for. I don't believe at any point the thought crossed Vince McMahon's mind or anybody's mind on top, hey, maybe we ought to put the belt on AJ, even though probably should. But they didn't, and so, they went out there and they had just a tremendous match, and they tried to put Roman Reigns over as this invincible force like they do with so many people. They God knows they did it for years with John Cena. No matter what you do to the guy, no matter how many times you hit your finish, hit him with a chair, hit him with a brick, shoot him with a gun. I was thinking to myself, what do they have to do to put down Roman Reigns? The only thing you could do is shoot him. Take out a gun and shoot him. And even that wouldn't work because the guy wears a fucking bulletproof vest. There is literally nothing you can do to put this man down. So Roman gets the win. People are very disappointed. And then out comes Seth Rollins. And I didn't think Rollins would be on the show. I had heard that he was going to be back in the next few weeks. I just didn't think they would bust him out here, but they did. Out of the crowd he came. Place went nuts. Laid out Roman Reigns with a pedigree. Rollins held up the WWE Championship that he never lost. And so there you go. You got your next big match, your next big program set up. AJ Styles, I guess, move aside. It's time for Seth Rollins now to get some glory in there with Roman Reigns. That would appear to be the main event for Money in the Bank, which would mean they're not waiting until SummerSlam to do the first match. It doesn't mean that Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins won't be your SummerSlam main event. By then it might be the second or third match in the program. But this would appear to be the next big pay-per-view main event for the championship. And it's a big match. And, as one of the listeners of the podcast pointed out when I answered one of the mailbag questions earlier today, they pointed out, why don't you build up this Rollins and Reigns match when they do it, whether it's at SummerSlam or whenever, as, 2 years in the making? And he made a good point that I hadn't thought of, which is that the first big pay-per-view encounter between these two was supposed to be Night of Champions in 2014. They had a match on Raw 6 days before. Why, I have no idea. Reigns pinned him clean in the middle, but they were still, promoting the pay-per-view match, which never happened because if you remember, Roman had the hernia. He got hurt. He was out for 3 months. Dolph Ziggler was the beneficiary of that. Dolph Ziggler he was the sole survivor, I think, in that Survivor Series match that year when Sting interfered. Believe you me, that would not have happened had Roman Reigns been around. So Roman got hurt, the match never happened. Last year, the Survivor Series main event was supposed to be Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins for the WWE Championship. And what happened? Seth got hurt. Match never happened. So you've got that tagline whenever you do the match, Money in the Bank, I guess. 2 years in the making. Finally, the two of them get to lock horns for the championship. Seth is the uncrowned champion. He had a severe injury, was stripped of the belt, and never actually lost the championship. He's kind of the uncrowned WWE champion. So the story is there. I'm looking forward to it. I hope that AJ Styles doesn't just, fade away. Hopefully they have something for him, even if it's not for the championship, because he deserves it. I mean, this what you saw here. This was just an all-star performance by him here. I mean, he put his body on the line. The guy, he took so much punishment in this match just to put on just to make the whole match look good. And I just thought the end result was just an excellent main event. What more can I say? So overall, I thought this was a good show. If you took away one of those two matches, the IC of the World, I don't know that the show really is as good, quite frankly. But when you have two super matches like this, you can't give this show anything but a thumbs up. It's not a perfect show, and Ambrose and Jericho is very disappointing. But overall, I thought those two matches carried it, and the Rollins return carried it to being a pretty good show. Now, I want to switch gears here really quickly to Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes posted an explanation on his personal Twitter account, @PrinceCGR, explaining his rationale for requesting his release from WWE, which came out of nowhere on Saturday. After 10 years in the company, he announced that he had requested his release. And he offered a pretty detailed explanation. If you want to go on there, you could read the whole thing. I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but you can read it yourself. And I was very surprised. When I talked about this on the podcast earlier, I said this is not necessarily because he was unhappy in the company with the way he was being treated or anything. Maybe he was burnt out. Maybe he was still, dealing with the fallout. His dad died less than a year ago. I know they were very close. I know he's working on a book about his father's life. He's got some other, interests. And I really didn't expect him to come out and have, any kind of negative stuff to say and all that kind of stuff. I thought the statement was very respectful, but it was also, like I said earlier, brutally honest, and he definitely, maybe airing dirty laundry isn't so much the right, phraseology, but, he was pretty honest that he, for months, has been pitching for them being Vince and Triple H, to allow him to come back as Cody Rhodes. Ditch the Stardust character and be himself. Be Cody Rhodes, which people have been begging for months. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a tweet or I've gotten emails from people. Why are they not letting him be Cody Rhodes again? And, my whole thing was, my understanding was he liked being Stardust. After Dusty passed away, a lot of people, understandably said, okay, now this is an opportunity to bring back Cody Rhodes and be himself and maybe even, wrestle in honor of his father. And I remember on his personal account, Cody had posted something something to the effect of, I'm not going to use my father's death to get myself over. Like, he was almost offended by the notion, no, this is like, he's going to continue to be Stardust. He's not going to try to profit or benefit from the death of his own father by turning it into an angle or using it to get himself over. And I remember reading that and thinking to myself, you know what? If he wants to be Stardust, then who the hell are we to say he shouldn't be Stardust? He seemed to be having fun. He was doing the stuff with Stephen Amell. But he revealed in this note that for months now, he has been pitching ideas left and right to the writers. He had some unkind words for the head writers of Raw and SmackDown. He referred to the head writer of Raw basically as a Brian Gewirtz wannabe. Brian Gewirtz used to be the head writer of Raw for many years. Now he works with The Rock. He used to do a lot of The Rock's material. The Rock relied on him when Rock would come back and make appearances here and there. He always had Gewirtz helping him and writing his material and stuff. And Gewirtz left the company a number of years ago, so now he's working with Rock. So he referred to the head Raw writer as like a Brian Gewirtz wannabe, basically, and then he referred to the SmackDown writer as someone who would hit on the developmental divas. Now, I don't know if he's referring to Ryan Katz, I think his name is, I believe, or no, not Ryan Katz, I'm sorry, Ryan Ward, I believe is his name. Ryan Ward used to write NXT. Not that NXT now is no good, but when NXT was like really at its peak week to week as a TV show, I saw his name pop up as the writer. You know, you got to give this guy credit. He's the one, him and Triple H, they write the shows. I think he got promoted, and now Ryan Ward is on SmackDown. I don't know if that's who Cody is referring to. I'm just telling you what's happened in terms of the writers. So it may or may not, that may or may not be the person he's referring to, but he didn't seem very happy with the writers, and he had some other unflattering things to say about his attempts to just pitch ideas, and they were falling on deaf ears, and he just got very, very frustrated. And he made it very clear at the end of the note that he is a wrestler, and so wrestle is what he will continue to do. This is not a case where he's going to go do some outside project and leave wrestling behind or take a break for a few years. And WWE made it official today on WWE.com. He was granted his release, so he is gone. I don't know about any non-compete or anything like that, but they have granted his release. Cody Rhodes is officially gone from WWE, and whether it's immediate or 90 days or whatever, he will be free and clear to go and do whatever he wants and wrestle wherever he wants. Where he wants to go, I have no idea. Only Cody Rhodes knows that. I don't know if he would go to TNA. I would think he could probably do a little bit better than that. Is he just going to do indies? Is he going to go to a Ring of Honor? Does he want to wrestle outside this country? I have no idea. But he did make it very clear that he wants to wrestle. He wants to be respected. He wants to be happy. He said it's not about money. It was never about money. He could even ask his wife, Eden, whenever they would get their checks. He wouldn't even look at the breakdown of how they came to, the different totals and stuff. It was never about money. Clearly, he's leaving behind a good gig. I'm sure he was doing very well for himself, but he wasn't happy. Same thing with Wade Barrett. He had a nice little cushy spot. Maybe he wasn't a headline guy, but he was on that roster for a number of years. He wasn't happy. So he said, I'm done. And Barrett chimed in on Twitter. He said, you got balls for making that decision. It's not an easy thing to do. So I have a lot of respect for Cody Rhodes. Clearly he was frustrated. Clearly he felt the way a lot of you guys did. He wanted to be Cody Rhodes, and they wouldn't let him. And I don't understand that. I really don't get that. I don't get why the resistance to that. I know in his note, he felt like he could be a top guy. He could be a world champion. That's debatable. Who knows? But where's the harm, even if he's lower down on the card, in saying, all right, you don't want to do the Stardust thing anymore and paint your face and all that? Fine. You want to be Cody Rhodes? Fine. Here, we got 27 writers. Let's take one or two of them. You guys huddle with Cody. Come up with an idea. Okay, pitch it to me. If I like it, we'll run with it. Why is this process so complicated? I don't understand why this has to be so complicated. You have a guy here who is passionate about wrestling, who's being proactive, who's trying to come up with something, trying to come up with ideas for himself, and make the writers' jobs a little bit easier, and he just gets stonewalled repeatedly to the point where he's so fed up, he leaves the company. He's a talented guy. So, maybe Cody Rhodes leaving, you're not going to feel the sting the way you would if Seth Rollins turned around and said, hey, I'm out of here. Okay, but still, he's a talented guy. He's going to go somewhere else, and he's probably going to do very well for himself. And it's just another example of talent that has just been, I was hesitant to use this word when I did the show earlier today, wasted talent. In part because I really did think that this was just something that Cody wanted. He wanted to just keep doing the Stardust character. Now that I know that he's been trying desperately to get out of this character for a number of months, what a waste of talent. I don't understand the thought process there. Why Why not work with the guy and let him be himself? And then see what happens. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. So, I mean, that's only a question WWE can answer. That whole system seems all fucked up to me. And another talented guy now has just said, "I've had enough," and he's gone. And I think that's a real indictment on that system that they have there. And hopefully he'll land on his feet, and I think he'll do very well for himself. And it looks like his wife, she was there doing the ring announcing tonight. It looks like she's sticking around, so she's not going anywhere. Goldust, I would imagine this doesn't affect him. He's still there. But you got to be happy. At the end of the day, however much money you make, and you're in WWE, the biggest company in the world, if you're not fucking happy, if you're just miserable and frustrated, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And he came to that realization, and I say good for him. So that's going to do it for this edition of Sound Off Extra here on the official YouTube channel for the Solomonster Sounds Off. You can listen to the full shows. They go up on the Solomonster.com, on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio. We are on Google Play Music now. Unless you have an iPhone. For whatever reason, Google Play Music and iPhone does not carry the show, but all other platforms, they do. If you've never heard a full show before, they usually run anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours. Every Sunday afternoon, they drop. Give it a listen and spread the word. I think you might enjoy it. Follow me on Twitter, @Solomonster, and keep it locked in here. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to this channel. That way, when a new video goes up, which you never know, could be at any time, we have interviews up on the channel. I just did an interview recently with Katrina from Lucha Underground, so you can go back in the archives and check that out. But hit the subscribe button so that way when new content goes up, you will be the first to know about it. So that's going to do it. Have yourselves a great night, and we'll see you back here real soon for another episode of Sound Off Extra. Until then, take care, guys.